This Chainsaw Man chapter gave us a really interesting new look at Yoru's personality, and I want to figure out where it actually comes from. For us to do that, however, we have to figure out a handful of things. Yoru's personality throughout the story has been interesting, to say the least. On one hand, she's selfish and childish. On another, she's egotistical, power-hungry, greedy. But then on another, she's sympathetic, oddly concerned, emotionally vulnerable. We have seen throughout the story that Yoru consistently navigates through a couple of different personalities, and she never really sticks with one. Perhaps it's mere comfortability or survival or something that she's insecure about. Maybe she just doesn't know who she technically is. For us to even figure out where some of this emotional vulnerability is coming from with the moray eel and how she feels towards her new devil companions, we have to try to understand what machinations are going on within her mind. Remember, she is not a singular person, and that gives us the perfect first place to start. Yoru and Asa are a funny combination. They're polar opposites. Something that was given to us a while ago is some of their mental and emotional capabilities intertwine. Now, from our understanding, it's not direct. It's not one-to-one. You don't really know how much or how little it affects the other individual, but we do know that it is there. So this would mean that a lot of Asa's insecurities, a lot of her emotional vulnerability is currently surrounding the mind of Yoru. And this doesn't necessarily mean we're going to see some emotional breakthrough from Yoru, but now you're starting to see a little bit more behind that strong, playful front that she usually has. The concern that she has for the moray eel feels more Asa-coded. And it's not to say that this isn't Yoru's emotions, but more so it's perpetuated or per se fueled by Asa's vulnerability. Asa can be a very empathetic individual. Sometimes it is a flaw to her nature. She cares too much. Perhaps it makes sense that the reason Yoru is feeling these things so directly, so aggressively, and something that she's willing to fight for is because Asa is amplifying it emotionally. There's a really cool connection here, however, if you haven't noticed with the moray eel, is that Asa is really fond of sea life. If we go back to the aquarium date between her and Denji, she learnt a lot about sea life and naturally could draw a connection to them because of how much she understands. All of this information could directly flow into Yoru as well, so it might be fitting that a sea creature, the moray eel, is now emotionally affecting Yoru because at their core, they are joined together. This alone could explain the vulnerability that Yoru is currently facing, the care and anger for her devil friends. But funny enough, we could probably go a little bit deeper. We just have to figure out where to look. A really good place to start would be the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse because we already have great examples. The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse within Chainsaw Man are incredible beings. They're complicated. One thing that's always been fascinating with them is Fujimoto either playing into or challenging them with their opposite. Control, for example, is someone that does not have equal relationships. She can't have a family. She's cold and isolated. But we know she yearns for that. Her opposite is of genuine love, genuine nurture, genuine family. A recent example is Death. Naturally, you would assume that Death is this all-powerful, all-encompassing, deathly figure. And you're not wrong. She is that. But her personality does not align with what you think Death would be. She likes life. She likes to live. She likes people that represent life. She likes to see things evolve and change, and she even likes to make friendships. And friendship feels like the biggest one. If you are the representation of death, connection is non-existent for you. You constantly die and reset the world. It'd be almost impossible to have a consistent, loving, nurturing relationship or connection. So for Death to go out of her way to appreciate it, to even try and protect it, is rather telling to the opposite of what her nature is. Using these two as an example, we can kind of figure out what Yoru's opposite is. So far, there seems like there is a common opposite that all the horsemen have: isolation, family, the want for connection, which means what they share regularly is that they are isolated, they are alone. An interesting fact is that the Four Horsemen recognize themselves as sisters, a pseudo-family structure to try and relate to one another, but ultimately fighting over and over and over again. family turmoil and destruction. It's funny that we never really see what that family dynamic is like. It would seem more like a placeholder, just a title for them to navigate between. But I wouldn't put it past Fujimoto for it to mean something more powerful. That even if it's just a title, even if they don't believe it, they yearn for such connection. They don't want to be alone. Thus they come together as a pseudo family and siblings. We can continue to take this further with Yoru. The representation of war is rather funny because it is not a singular thing. It is a collaboration of many things. So for war to even be functional, for war to be scary or powerful, you need to have other elements combined together to create what would be known as Yoru. By the sheer nature of that design, she is alone. She is isolated because she cannot function or operate naturally without her devil friends or buddies surrounding her to prop her up. A funny way that I think Fujimoto plays into this rather directly is with Asa. With the identity and isolation motif, she most likely has never had a name for herself that is concrete. And a name is only meaningful to the people around you. When we're first introduced to her, she gives the name Yoru, but she's hesitant at first, almost like it's difficult, or she's unsure, or if it even matters to give it to someone if they're not going to be around for any period of time. But giving your name to someone is a bridge to that connection. You can build a relationship potentially. And with Asa, that's exactly what she's done. They've come to understand each other. They've been vulnerable with each other. They've figured out a lot. Because of that, you see sides of Yoru that are so personality driven. The times where she acts as a spoiled child or a brat. The times where she's super playful and obnoxious and over the top. Now we're seeing something where she's vulnerable and angry and upset for the first time. But the key difference is that it's not directed towards herself. It's not even directed towards Asa or Denji. It's directed towards her friends. She seems genuinely upset that her friends have died. The Chainsaw Man is erasing them. With what we currently have, I think it paints the picture for her rather well. Now she's pulling out big, powerful weapons associated with the moon. We could look at the idea of there being a devil inside of the moon, which I think would be an interesting conversation to have. Similar to how a part of the gun devil was placed within the Statue of Liberty within America. It made sense and it was very beautifully symbolic and representative. The moon, however, is a little bit different. The moon being a celestial body governed technically by no one, but in this instance, owned or claimed by the United States. So we can think two things. There's either a devil in there that they've placed, which would be very, very powerful, away from all prying eyes on Earth, or the moon itself is being turned into a weapon. If we follow down the line of logic, it probably is the second option. She turned Oregon into a physical weapon, which means it's 100% plausible that she could turn the moon into a weapon. Well, now what exactly this affects or does is another conversation for a different time. For now, it feels like we've figured out Yoru, but I'm sure there's more stuff that will come to the table. Chainsaw Man is constantly evolving as well, and seeing this Denji Pochita hybrid with leaning into Denji's personality is really fun. Him erasing things, however, at least in this stage, is fascinating, because I think there's a big conversation to have with his power. Is he able to erase things like Pochita in this form, or is this more kind of like a semi-erasure similar to Makima? As of now, we do not really know the effects, but I am curious to see where Fujimoto takes this story.